Stronger,
Imagine a world without choices.
stronger,
Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC.
Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, them regulation, them taxation. Rob Jamaica, we independent. Be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. We're gonna be stronger together. Come, we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Non-partisan, constitutional, Republic of Jamaica.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I want to apologize for the late start of this evening UIC Liberty Live. I also want to wish everyone happy Heroes Day. I want to salute those whose shoulders we are standing on right now, those who have paid the way for us to be here. I want to salute those who went before us, persons such as Nani from the Blue Mountain section of the Leeward Maroon, Daddy Sam Sharp, who started that slave rebellion in Montego Bay, St. James, Redding. I want to salute Paul Bogle. I want to salute more recently persons like Marcus Messiah Garvey, who sought to chart a way for the Black community in the 20th century. I also want to salute George William Gordon, who sacrificed his life by aligning himself with the cause and the struggle of the Black man. I also want to salute persons such as St. William Grant, who was a pivotal figure in the UNIA movement, and he was the key runner for the JLP in organizing on the ground. I also want to salute Sir Leonard Percival Howell, another key figure in the Garvey UNIA movement, who helped to start that workers' strike in Bowden in St. Thomas. A lot of Jamaicans are not aware that Kingston was not only the only port of export of produce in Jamaica. There was a port in Bowden in eastern St. Thomas, and Leonard Howell was integral in organizing workers' strike in Bowden in St. Thomas in the 1930s. I also wanted to salute and remember A.J. Coombs, who was a pioneer in the workers' movement, and he had a trade union called Workers and Docksmen Union in the 1970s, and also Stennett Carr Coombs, who was a Garveyite and had a printry did a lot of printing, and also from the UNI movement itself. I mentioned Marcus Garvey, but I also want to mention three stalwarts whose name have not been mentioned too much in the annals of Jamaican history. One, Theophilus Akins. Two, John Coleman Beecher. And they were both key members of the UNI who actually sat in the Kingston and St. Andrew Corporation along with Marcus Garvey. And at one stage, the KCC was actually locked down because Garvey, Akins, and Beecher proposed a raft of laws that would have changed how City Kingston would have run. So I want to salute all those heroes, those whose names that we know and those names that we do not know. Tonight, I want to speak on a number of issues. Transportation is one, but firstly, issues of national importance and not so national. First, I want to make mention of two pronouncements by the Prime Minister, which I thought was ill-advised. I'm not sure who are those persons advising the Prime Minister. The first are not just statement, but decision made by the Prime Minister. The first is in relation to the Asians and the Asian crisis and the government decision to send troops into Haiti. I think that was an ill-advised decision to send troops into Haiti. I think the Asian people need to determine their own destiny. Yes, we agree that there are issues happening on the ground, but it's for the Asian people to come together and sort out that issue. If we are to play a role in helping Haiti to sort out its problem, I think it's one where the government should seek to make contact with persons on the ground, key persons on the ground, those who have influence, and to bring those people together to see how best they could sort out a peaceful solution going forward. I don't think a lot of persons understand the Asian issue and how important Haiti is to the region. As far back as 1804, when the Asian finally threw off the French and the shackles of slavery and sought to found a republic in this hemisphere, the first Black Republic, they have been under pressure from other Western colonial power. And notable, Haiti is significant in the liberation struggle, especially in South America. It was Simon Bolivar, after he stayed here in Jamaica, went straight to Haiti, and he was given weapons along with some of the best general in the Asian army at the time, was given to Simon Bolivar to help in his quest in the liberation of the South American continent, which he was successful in his pursuit of certain section of South America. So we see where Haiti has played a pivotal role in the liberation of European colonial powers in that section of the region. Also, where the United States is concerned, it has played an important role in the Asian crisis, in that US had invaded Haiti in 1914, and since its invasion of Haiti, it has had a stronghold on not just the Asian economy, but on the political life of Haiti, who is in power and so forth. So for the US government to be seeking international assistance in trying to bring to some sort of semblance of order in Haiti, I think it's a bit disingenuous. I think it is my opinion, if the US government want to see some semblance of good governance in Haiti, or a more cohesive um, unity amongst the people, it should relieve itself of its stronghold on the Asian government and the political affair of Haiti. Also, as it relates to our Prime Minister pronouncement to support for Israel and to, his word of backlash for Hamas, I would say to the Prime Minister, Jamaica was one of the first countries who supported the call for sanctions against apartheid South Africa, and played heavily in the struggle to have South Africa be, you know, um, um, the move to have pressure put on the South African regime to move itself away from the apartheid structure that it has. So I think it's a move from what Jamaica stands for, by the Jamaican government aligning itself with a government which has, have and continue to install and operate an apartheid system, an apartheid regime within its country. I'm not sure if the Prime Minister was thinking of its cybersecurity agreement that it has with the Israeli, and if support was not given, it may hamper that sort of agreement that they have. So that's my 2 cents on those issues, which is currently in the public domain. I mainly want to speak about transportation this evening. By now, we would have learned that there is a fare increase which was granted by the government as of yesterday, the 15th of October. We have to look at this from the context of whether or not if we do have a properly run bus system, or we do have a structured public transportation system. I just want to give a brief historical background to this important sector of the Jamaican society. Jamaica, in its early stage, operated a mule and cart system, and that system was initially phased out in the late 1800s, 1890s, 1889, 1890, and then give way to the tram system. The tram system eventually gave way to the bus service in the late 1949 to the early 50s. Till I think about 1953, there was a bus service which operated in the KMTR region, which was initially operated by India Utilities Company and later Jamaica Omnibus Service, which was initially nationalized by the Jamaican government in 1974. The JOS, when it was taken over by the government, its service was run down. It has to repair some of the services that the omnibus service had, including the depot at Lindus Road. However, that the government service never lasted long from 1974 after it was nationalized. And then in 1983, it gave way to a private contractor, including the Ezra Millwood Group, which lasted up until 1998. If we do recall the whole issue of the private contractor Ezra Millwood Group, would have recognized that that system was plagued with a lot of issues, including overcrowding. There was a lot of pickpocket, loud music, and so forth on the buses. And as such, there was a lot of call for order within the public transportation system. That call lasted up until 1998 when the government chooses to took back control of public transportation and to install a new public transportation system, namely the JUTC as we have it today. It cost the government and taxpayers quite a sum in having the new public transportation, as there was a lengthy court battle between the Millwood Group and the government over the legality of the government to really take back the public transportation system. Eventually, that case lasted for about 15 years in the court, back and forth, until final award was made to the Elmore Millwood Group of over 580 million dollars, out of the government coffers. Today, the JUTC is not immune to the issues which was plagued by the private contractors. If we go anywhere into downtown in peak hours or in after 3, you would recognize that the buses are overloaded to capacity. If you're viewing at some point in time, doors are not being able to close properly because of the number of persons who are on the step. And this is post-COVID and also pre-COVID experience, where students coming from school have to be running and cramping to go into buses. For me, I don't think we have a properly run transportation system. Yes, there's a private contractors who run similar routes as the JUTC. However, that is not structured, because if you go on the road, you can see this order that exists where that is concerned. So I think some semblance of order need to be brought to the public transportation system to say that we do have public transportation. When you look at the rural side of the island, a man have his vehicle, he may apply for PPV and then for a route, and that route is granted. and that route may take him to various sections of the island, or those vehicles may come into town. Again, some amount of work need to be done to get it structured. And then you have persons who are not PPB holders. And I'm not saying that we should keep those people out of the system, because the formal system has to work with the informal system. And as such, when the formal system break down, or meaning there's a strike within the formal system, it is the informal system which reassert itself to ensure that the country do function, people do get to work, people do get to go about their daily tasks and get things done. So there are room for them, but how do we fit them into the system has to be looked at. Another issue with the transportation system is not just the overcrowding, but the structuring of the system. And one of the questions is to be asked from the government is what is happening with JUTC. We hear that 50 buses were supposed to come into the country to alleviate the problem of the buses on the road. Those 50 are short. And from my understanding, the JUTC is short of buses to function effectively. And another issue with the JUTC is the number of buses that are parked, that are not serviced, because government is not buying spare parts for the vehicle, so those vehicles can be properly serviced and then put back into the system to complement those that are there. So that question needs to be asked of the government. What is happening with the JUTC? What is the government intention toward the JUTC? If the government at some point in time is going to say, throw their hand in the air and say, well, we have had enough with JUTC, it is not running profitably, and so we are closing the operation of JUTC. Not so long ago, Ratcliffe Lewis was brought in to the JUTC from the Jamaica Constabulary Force to stem the loss in revenue to the JUTC. But yet still, we understand that the JUTC is still losing money. I think the problem is that the JUT is not properly structured, it is not properly organized, and you have persons in capacity who are not suited, or who no proper evaluation was done as to whether or not these persons are suited for this post. That's my own assumption. It is left for the public to determine, whether that is so. The issue as well with the JUTC is whether or not, government is going to ask private operator again to come and look at taking over the public transportation system. We see to some extent where there's a private operator who is operating, and you can hear that every quarter that company is making a profit. And I think one of the problems that the government have not looking, or not seek to put measures in place to capitalize on this, is the fact that when the last fare increase was granted, the government sought to offset that 50%, that 15%, or that 15% cost to the general public by not imposing that 15%. What has happened is that a lot of persons sought to run to the JUTC, to take the JUTC to, to say we are going to save that 15% that the government has offset to us because we are going to use it to do something else. And, there was an inflow of passengers to the government, to the JUTC at that time when that window was open. And somehow the JUTC was not able to capitalize on that inflow. So what has happened is that over time, over several months, persons sought to move away from the JUTC and go back to the taxis that run the route that complement JUTC on those routes. So that is another issue that the JUTC need to look into. And additionally, the fare increase, which was granted to public owners of public transportation. I think it was a bit disingenuous for the government to use this time, the Heroes Weekend, to make that pronouncement, 2 days before the start of the work week, when persons would have been rested, going out to enjoy the holiday weekend, only to wake up back on the first weekend to find themselves have to be paying an additional fare. I don't think this was properly sorted out. I don't think there has been a proper analysis of the transportation sector and the fare increase which is granted to the operators of public transportation. I don't think enough consultation has been done. From my vantage point, consultation has been only done with those persons who are operators of public transportation, but there are other stakeholders, including those commuters who take the public transportation on a daily basis. So no town hall as such was had or to get a view from the general public as to what the transportation system is like. Government meet with private transportation holders and they have their deliberation and they make their decision. I think the fare increase is unjustified. I think the level of increase is unjustified. And if there should be a fare increase, it should be one that is more justified. In the previous round where that 15% increase was granted, the operator they strangle harmed the Jamaican public and decide that they were going to take a 50% increase instead of the 15% which was granted to them by the Jamaican government. So there's no order in the system. The commuters or the operators of public transportation, they are saying we are making decisions for ourselves, not the government. Additionally, when you look at public transportation leaving Kingston via Ocho, Montego Bay, not Montego Bay, Kingston, Clarendon, into Maypen, into Mandeville, into Black River. What has happened is that when there is an increase in toll rate, the toll operators unilaterally makes an increase to the commuting public, and when another round of increases granted by the government, they are also granted that increase as well. So there's no investigation done by the government or the transport authority, who is the regulator on the government behalf, to ensure that there's a smooth and orderly transportation system. I can recall that a few weeks ago, there was an increase on the north-south leg of the highway, which is Kingston to Montego Bay and Kingston into Orchard, Runaway Bay, St. Anne's Bay. And what has happened is that those toll operators have given themselves almost a 20% increase from what they, on what they are presently charging. So in effect, what those operators will be granted in the first round, they will be granted almost a 40% increase as of today, or I should say as of yesterday. And come April, when there's another round of increase, which is 16%, would make it about 56, 57% that they would have been granted in that period of time. So I think, and that goes for the other leg of the highway, Kingston into Maypen, Mandeville, into Savalamar. So I think that need to be looked into. So there could be some semblance of order to the system. My question to the government is, what are you going to say to those commuters who are already paying almost a 20% increase in transportation fare as a result of the toll increase, which were granted to the toll operators? And what the operators of public transportation have done was to pass on that increase to the public and asking them to offset the cost for what they are now paying to the new toll fare that they are now paying. I think, there needs to be some investigation by the government. There needs to be some rethink of this decision by the government to actually grant the fare increase, or to grant the level of fare increase to the toll operators. It cannot be a case where, and yet still, persons are asked to pay these fare increase when they're not getting the level of service for the increase. If you travel on the public transportation anywhere between Kingston, around Kingston, and outside of Kingston, it is not one of comfort. I can tell you it is not one of comfort, especially for those who have to travel consistently, outside of Kingston, between Kingston to Orchard, Kingston into Montego Bay on a daily basis. Either they work in Orchard or they are informal commercial, persons who travel Kingston to Orchard, to Mandeville, to Montego Bay, to Sav, and then they travel back in the evening. It is going to cost, immensely on those persons, and also persons who have to find. Now it is going to be, instead of $150, it is going to be $180, because no operator is going to charge 19% for the increase. They're going to round it off at 20%. And I suspect come April, when that 16% is granted, they're not going to take 16, they're going to take 20% as well. So my question is how the traveling public is going to fare with this new level of increase to the public. It is not just in the Kingston region and those going west or easterly. It's also those who live on the Morant Bay side, because a lot of persons travel into Morant Bay from Kingston and as far as Port Morant into Kingston and work in Kingston and travel back to their home in the evening. And along that road, there have been at least 2 increase since the government had granted increase to those operators. Currently, on an average, if you're taking the taxis or the small buses into Morant Bay, you're on average you're going to pay $500 plus the increase which is going to come now, and then the increase which is going to come in April. It is putting a burden on the Jamaican public in an economy which is not growing, in an economy which is not offering much for those who are at the lower end of the economic strata. So I think the government needs to revisit this idea. They need to carefully look at the fare structure. They need to carefully look at the structure of the system and how the system operates. So I think the government needs to clearly revisit this one. And it seems as if the minister himself doesn't have a clue as to what is happening. It is as if a fare increase is asked for and the fare increase is granted. No other variable is looked at and to see what is impacting on the motoring public. Yes, I would agree that fuel price has increased over time. Yet, if you had given an increase which you think is reasonable based on the level of movement of the cost of fuel, then you should ensure that the level of increase that you give does stick, there's no disorder in the system, and that the operator themselves do not go above board and charge what they feel like charging. I hear the minister say that he is going to ensure that no operators charge above what is supposed to be charged. That was said the last time, and in the end, the operators of public transportation, they prevail. So I would want to know what sort of approach that the government is going to take to ensure that there's no overcharging this time around. So my call to the government is to look at the transportation system in a wholesome fashion and to make the correct decision, so that both the commuters and the public operators of public transportation can be satisfied that it's a win-win situation. It should not be on a day like this or in a time like this when it's National Heroes Day that we are burdened with a new round of fare increase, which is going to hit heavily in the pocket of all Jamaicans who take public transportation to traverse across the island, going about their daily business. I think it's ill-advised, and this one needs a rethink. So I would like to call on the government, and those who are affiliated to the government or who have the minister here and who might be hearing, or watching this live, to speak to the minister to see whether or not there can be a rethink of this decision, or to put a hold on the fare increase until a proper assessment has been done as to the fare increase. So that is my take on my 2 cents on the public transportation system. I want to thank everyone who joined the live this evening. I want to implore you to continue to support the UIC, support the plans and activities of the UIC. I want you to spread the word concerning the UIC far and wide so the numbers will grow. It is that time when every Jamaican must, you know, put their heart and their head, where this is concerned. We're living in a time when, not in my time, I am not a very old man. I'm still in my prime, but I've lived some time, and this is the worst of time. The corruption, the murder. No, we're not having single or double murders a day. We're having quadruple murders, and it is consistently, with regularity. There is word on the ground that we are not being given the correct figure for the murder rate. So that is another thing that need to be looked into. But I want to implore every Jamaican, those who are listening, here tonight, to spread the word, so that this movement continue to grow, that it continue to grow in numbers, so we are able to find all suitable candidates and representatives for all constituency, all divisions. There's a impending local government which is coming up. There is national election which is slated for 2025. There's also the notion of a referendum which is coming up, probably maybe in 2024. We cannot just sit back and just draw ourselves from politics. Politics affect every area of our life. And if we do not take a stand up, if we do not lend our voice to the cause, then government will continue to do just as what they are doing now. Our forefathers before us, they sacrificed. Some sacrificed their blood, made the ultimate sacrifice. And I would go further to say, some of those who sacrificed their blood knew that when they were revolting, it would cost their life, but yet still they were not afraid, to sacrifice their life, to pave the way and to clear the way so that we could be enjoying the type of life that we are living. It is for us in this time to ensure that we clear the path so those who are coming can stand on our shoulders, just as how we are standing on the shoulders of those who went before us. So I want to say thank you all for tuning into this live this evening. You know, I wish for everyone what is left of this evening, happy year's day, and to continue, go out, spread the word. Rise up, Jamaica. Enough is enough. Thank you and good night.